One of my favorite Adam Rank bangers is Unpopular Opinions.
Oh, thank you.
With Adam Rank. So what we're going to do here, we're going to go through all sorts of fantasy angles as your draft is hopefully right around the corner now with the third preseason game coming up in a third week of preseason coming up in a few days. So with Rank, we figured Unpopular Opinions. Rank will throw out some the brick-by-brick guys, the bricklayers I call them.
Yeah.
They'll toss in some, and maybe 1 out of 20 Zeuser will throw in one of his own. Throw it out there, Adam.
You know, one of the things that I've done, if you're in the last half of the first round, I have now really enjoyed taking Travis Kelce in about the 109 spot. And it's one of those things that I think what a lot of people will do when they approach it, and Graham Barfield, our fantasy managing editor, and I were talking about this. He was sitting there saying, I hope that Travis Kelce falls to me in the second. I'm going to take Julio or Michael Thomas or somebody like that. My contention was, instead of doing that, instead of hoping Travis Kelce falls to you, you go out and you grab him. And then in the second round when your pick comes around, you can still get a top-flight receiver like Mike Evans, Juju Smith-Schuster, and there you can kind of build your roster from that spot and go forward. And as a matter of fact, in Fantasy League 1, which Ricky Hollywood and I participated in, we'll be putting that over at great length.
Coming soon.
This is like an NFL media
creation. It's
thing.
part of the all-new fantasy app. If you have enjoyed our fantasy app in the past, I can't imagine that you did. Because it needed some improvements. We went out and we made those improvements.
Nice.
I'm going to be fair. I'm not going to sit here and snow the ATN audience. They're far too sharp for that. We can get stuff over on the NFL fantasy audience. They'll whatever.
Mouth breathers.
They're like circus seals. We're just throwing them fish.
You know, we share a lot of the listeners, by the way.
Do we?
Just be careful.
I don't know
Adam,
if we
that's
do.
all.
I don't know that
There
that's
is.
the case. I'm teasing.
brilliant.
I love everybody.
Circus seals.
I love everybody. The thing is,
Great team we have.
with the all-new NFL fantasy app, the experience is amazing, and Fantasy League 1 will be a part of it. I took Travis Kelce there at 109, and I feel great about it, even though I've been besmirched and harangued on the internet.
Well, I think
Chastised.
one reason why it's unpopular, I think because there's not, to me, as big a gap at tight end as some years where maybe Gronk was way ahead of the pack. I don't see a huge difference between Kelce and Kittle and Ertz. And then the next group is so nice and deep and fine for me that it doesn't seem worth taking Kelce.
For the record, according to our NFL fantasy app, which has really gotten a pretty facelift, I will say, Kelce is going around pick 16, so he's a second-round guy. So it's not a huge reach to go get him if you're picking, let's say, 10th in your league.
Yes.
But it is a reach.
It is a reach, and you also have to know who's in your draft with you, because Graham was behind me, and I knew that if I missed out, he was not coming back around. I think that when you look at it, Kelce's been the top scorer amongst fantasy tight ends the last 3 years. That trend is going to absolutely continue. He is the most consistent one. I think that Zach Ertz could have a little bit of a regression this year because Dallas Goedert will start getting more into the mix. Alshon Jeffrey's healthy. They added Miles Sanders. I think there's a possibility for a little bit, not much, but I think that Kelce and Kittle are closer to Hunter Henry and O.J. Howard than they are to Travis Kelce, so I'd jump in for it.
All right, give us another unpopular.
Wait, hold on, Wes.
I was just going to say I agree with you in that if you have a strong gut opinion,
Well, that's fair.
go with it. Go with your feeling if it's very strong. And I don't forget consensus. I hate consensus. Just go with the guy you want. But I also agree with Greg. There's a very attractive group of value plays at tight end this year.
There is, and you're going to have to be willing to make sure that you're targeting the right running backs in rounds 3, 4, and 5. You got to make sure you're not drafting a quarterback to the double-digit rounds. But then, even at the double-digit rounds, you can end up grabbing somebody like Lamar Jackson, who before the show started, we talked about his first 2 games out of the gate are Miami and Arizona. You could also grab Ben Roethlisberger. There's a lot of value out there at the quarterback position, so you just have to be really confident in your overall plan. It's not something that you walk in and be like, I'll do this as a last-minute thing. You got to really have it prepared.
All right, give us another unpopular opinion.
You know what? I really believe that Antonio Brown is going to be fine for the Raiders. And I know that everybody's making a huge
you on
deal
that.
about the
Oh, yeah.
helmet and everything. He knows how, but his ADP is now sliding into the 3rd round, and I just don't get it. He did not forget how to play football because he spent the past 2 weeks arguing about his helmet. He is still a very good player, and he's going to a team. Everybody acts like Derek Carr is some scrub of a quarterback. He's not too far removed from his 2016 season when he put up MVP-type numbers. And so I look at the situation that
Hit
he
it
walks
again.
into, and the overall construction of this team. You bring in Tyrell Williams to be the deep threat. You draft Josh Jacobs, and now you add Antonio Brown. I liken it to what happened when Jerry Rice joined the Raiders back in the day, John Gruden's first stint with the team. Rich Gannon all of a sudden becomes an MVP candidate. I think that Antonio Brown's going to go out there and have another lights-out season. And you look at it's not too hard for these guys to make an immediate impact. Look at what Amari Cooper did last year when he went to the Cowboys. He joined that team mid-season and instantly made them better. Antonio Brown's going to do the same thing, so anybody who's passing on him will look the fool.
I watched, wrote on Hard Knocks, I wrote the latest episode recap, and it was all about Brown, and they did a really good job digging into what's going on there right now. And thank you, Ricky. And you know what? It seems like things are going to be okay there. It seems like the feet, it's not going to be an issue. He said there's a little burning when he runs, and he has to sometimes take his shoes off. But that's all trending in the right direction. And I think the relationship between Gruden and Brown is really strong, and I think he's going to be on the field week 1. So people that are avoiding Brown because they think this helmet thing is going to carry over, I understand your trepidation and stay away if you want. But I think there's a much better chance he's playing starting week 1.
I'm avoiding him. I would not draft this guy at all where he's being taken. And it doesn't have anything to do with the helmet or the feet. He's sort of the bizarro. Derek Carr is the bizarro Big Ben. He doesn't take chances down the field. He's afraid to hold the ball and wait for a big play to happen. He doesn't specialize in broken plays. He and Ben and AB had years to develop chemistry, and now we're going to put him in with Derek Carr, who to me is just the opposite of Big Ben.
He is a little bit, and maybe that's why he doesn't get 1,800 yards this year. But I wouldn't be surprised.
He didn't get 1,800 last year.
Right.
Not even close.
I wouldn't be surprised if Antonio Brown is wide receiver 1 by the end of the year, or top 2 or 3, because they're going to throw it to him 180 times. They're just going to force it. And you're right. It's going to be 9 8-yard passes, but Antonio Brown can make plays on his own, and he'll get in PPR. Yeah, exactly, with a terrible defense. So it's like they're going to just be throwing the ball to Antonio Brown like more than they should probably, and just
they're going to force the ball to him. They're going to be in a lot of deficits where they're going to have to be forcing the ball to Antonio Brown. He's their best player. He comes in and gets all the target in it.
I'd only take a couple, maybe 2 receivers ahead of him.
Who?
Julio and who am I thinking? Michael Thomas. Which I'm just going to go right into my unpopular opinion because it's about those two.
Please.
Which is basically, I did take a look at the average draft position. That's not a big deal. I don't think people should be afraid to just take those two, especially in my mind, with the 5th or 6th pick. Like I would much rather, like every year we see this, that running backs go the first 7 or 8, or there's going to be 9 or 10 in the first round, and 4 or 5 of those end up being problems. When you've got just certainty, certain big numbers of Hall of Fame type guys in the middle of their prime, in Michael Thomas especially, but I would put Julio in that group too, where it's just they're coming down with 90 or 100 catches. They're filling up the stat sheets every week, and there's still running backs available in the 3rd or 4th round that I like. And so once you get past about 4 running backs or so, I'm taking those 2 guys.
That's fair. Anybody disagree with that?
No, not at all.
Let's check in, by the way. Let's head over to the fan. And
I guess
again,
it wasn't that unpopular.
a little bit.
I think, you know what, though? It is unpopular.
Doesn't seem like it happens.
No. Listen, if there are a lot of fantasy people who love the running back.
And if you like Hopkins better, or I could see that, or whoever you like better, but those 2 for me are just money in the bank, A minuses.
So if
just
they're going
no risk.
11th or 12th overall, who cares?
There's no risk.
If you like it at 5 or 6, you'll take them at 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Let's head to the fantasy corner. Marc Sessler, very bad neighborhood, as we know. Let's see. Mark, you there?
Hey, guys.
What's up? Wait a second. Where are you?
Well, I'll let you know where I am. As you can see, I think as you can hear, the Fantasy Corner has polished up its image just a bit. The opiate salesmen and the racetrack heavies have been replaced by fresh-faced young entrepreneurs. Why, just before the show, Rick Hollywood and I dined on $45 plates of probiotic-infused pancakes right here at the Romper, a delightful new David Ely-owned eatery. As an example of how the neighborhood has changed, this same spot right here once served as a low-rent storefront selling used ladies' clothing and horsewhips while churning out about 150 gallons of illegal whiskey per week. What spurned this uptick, you ask? Well, I'm here with impressive 25-year-old urban developer Emery Saxonville to find out. Emery, how exactly did you rid the streets of so many untoward elements and devil-may-care thugs to pave the way for the changes that we're seeing here in the...
Uh-oh. What? Mark, you there?
Okay, so it looks like the gentrifying hasn't totally taken over.
Mark, you there?
Some gentrification,
Let's get back on track. We'll check in with Mark.
It's a few blocks.
I mean, that's always an issue. It's like the people who have been there for a while, they're going to clash with the hipsters that are coming.
You want to go get your avocado toast someplace, but you make the wrong turn out of that eatery, and all of a sudden you're back.
As a former Hoboken, New Jersey resident, I can tell you the gentrification process does lead to clashing.
Well, you don't want
okay.
You don't want premature gentrification.
Never.
No, never.
Never. Okay.
That's terrible.
Wes, do you have an unpopular opinion you'd like to share?
I do. Stop using total fantasy points from the previous season to prove that the guy you want is a great value. David Johnson of the Cardinals is a prime example. I heard another fantasy analyst this week say he finished 9th overall at running back last year. It wasn't even a bad year. Stop what you're doing right now.
It was Matt Berry, everybody.
Never use end of the year points.
Dan's just saying that.
It was.
It was Matt Berry, who is a heck of a nice guy, and I like him a lot.
And a great analyst.
But he knows what he's doing because he writes a whole article on misusing stats. Look, you
should know better.
You want a week-to-week advantage in fantasy football. That's all that matters. This guy gets artificially inflated numbers by the end of the year because more productive running backs fall by the wayside when they get injured. So a guy who's been a mediocre guy week to week all year has inflated stats by the end of the year. Just stop doing it. That's my unpopular opinion.
And I know he finished top 10 ultimately, but show me one David Johnson owner from last year that won his league.
Thank you.
David Johnson was a key player on his roster. I speak from experience, actually. He was a guy that, because that offense was so overmatched and because the team was so bad, because he would catch the ball and they'd give the ball a lot, he'd give you, 10, 12 points. But he was not anybody that was a game changer. And you're looking for game changers where you're taking a David Johnson.
Fantasy sports have always been and will always be about the difference makers and the game changers.
That is true. But I think what Matthew's point is, because I'm kind of on board with him, is that you could count on him week to week. Now,
he didn't kill you. If you didn't win your league, he wasn't really the biggest reason why. He didn't totally assassinate.
He's a mediocrity.
Yeah.
I don't want mediocrities
overall.
on my fantasy team.
He's going 10th overall
last
on
year,
NFL.com.
yes.
Yeah, but if you ended up picking up if you picked up Damian Williams, Nick Chubb, and Phillip Lindsay, and David Johnson was acting as your flex, that was fine.
That's my point. You can pick guys off the waiver wire who outscored him.
I don't like this show. I have David Johnson and Zach Ertz.
No, hold on.
From yesterday.
We're talking about last year, though. David Johnson this year.
No. We like him this year. I understand where.
I can see both.
Where
Got
Wes
a
is
mouse in
coming
your
from.
pocket? I don't. That's another unpopular opinion, but I can save that one.
What one?
That you shouldn't keep mice in your pocket? I mean, I'm against it. They're
There is-
animals.
What's
They're
happening?
God's creatures.
There is way too much inherent trust in Arizona's offense. Maybe they have a high ceiling. They probably do. But you're going to need a canary in the coal mine to withstand the depths of that floor.
I'm with you. My thing with Johnson is just he's another year away in a bet in what that was the lowest ranked offense by DVOA and Football Outsiders in almost league history.
And the
Right.
same
And
people
so-
are there.
Yeah, but the
know, they
coaches are. David Johnson is someone that you've loved in the past. I just think he'll return more to form further away
He's
from
on
the
my
injury.
better real life than fantasy team.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm nervous as heck about Marc Sessler, who last time we heard from him, there was just a massive explosion. Mark, are you there?
Guys, I am here. And Dan, I appreciate your concern. I will remind all four of you that we are we're at a gym here. We're at
Where are
Equinox
you?
Gym. We're a resilient community. And I'm over here working on some single-arm dumbbell rows, some hex bar deadlifts. And while you clowns operate vicariously, trying to tell your friends to buy you a strawberry ice cream because you picked 7 football players correctly, I'm over here turning my physical form into electricity.
All right. Well, he's okay. After the way he was talking to us, I don't really care anymore. But
Life is good for Mark right now.
Adam Rank, one more unpopular opinion
All right,
before
let's
you go?
I want to build on, because I wanted to stump for David Montgomery, but that's
Here's my
that's
unpopular opinion. All your stumping has actually, raised his value so high that he's no longer even a good value.
That's been terrible. Well, Matt Nagy's going out and combating that today too by saying
All the
"We're not-"
fantasy hype is like, okay, now he's like a third-round pick. It's like,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not that excited about him.
No, that's definitely the case. You know who I really like though? I think that Duke Johnson is a nice fit.
Yeah,
Houston.
I'm with you.
I think that I know a lot of people will point to Deshaun Watson like, well, he's never thrown to his running backs because he didn't have a didn't have a running back like that before. Like, it's like I never drove until I had a car. Like, I get it. Like, he now has a running back he can throw the ball to. And I think that with Will Fuller, until he comes back and shows that he's completely healed from his knee injury, that Duke Johnson could end up being their number 2 receiving option. So I love that all day.
And I'm all about just talent over getting even crazy with the situation. He's a better player than Lamar Miller. So in the end, I think he'll end up with more touches and more yards than Lamar Miller.
All right, Adam Rank. He is, according to his own Twitter bio, your favorite fantasy analyst.
That's true.
You can see him on NFL Network all season. You could also check out the Adam Rank podcast.
Thank you.
Which people talking, streets talking.
The streets talking.
And follow Adam on Twitter at Adam Rank. Sir, it was an honor and a pleasure, and we promise it won't take this long to get you back in the studio.
Why? What happened? Was this my first time or something?
I'm surprised it took you this long to complain after all the complaining you were doing downstairs the other day.
I'm not a complainer, but when the situation was
he sounded like he was ready to just come with that right off the gate. So I admire your restraint.
I expected it.
Why make that show about that? We could come back and do that. This is for the people, for the fantasy advice, and I will get you all back in your own special way.
You're the best. Adam Rank.
Thank you.
Everybody. It's time to welcome a very special guest. Last time he was on the show, he was in the studio. This time we have to settle for the phone, but we're very excited to have him. He is a former general manager. He's got 3 Super Bowl rings? You kidding me?
3 Super Bowl rings. Well, we got one. We put that one in the back closet because we lost that one. But we got 3 winners and 1 didn't win.
There you go. And now you know the voice. Now he works for NFL Network as an analyst. Charlie Casserly, welcome back to the Around the NFL podcast.
Hey, it's an honor to be with you guys. Excited about it.
Yes.
Country.
Absolutely. Charlie, it's great to have you on because you're on fire. You got a lot of things you want to talk about, and we want to talk about them with you. So we want to get right to it and talk a little bit about the Dallas Cowboys, a topic that obviously will always have a lot of intrigue here, the America's Team angle and all that. And they have a tricky situation as a former GM, Charlie. When you look at the situation, of course, Zeke holding out, Dak wants money, reportedly $40 million, and Amari Cooper wants his money. How do you play this? Put us in the GM shoes here.
Well, I think in what the Cowboys have done, I would have done the same thing. They've given them all really good offers. Amari Cooper, somewhere, my guess is somewhere to 17 to 18 million, because they say he's in the top 5. So I think they did the right thing there. Now, he has 1 year to go on his contract, so if he's not signed and you have the free agent tag, you can the franchise tag could franchise him next year. My gut is that thing gets done. On Dak, I think they've offered him, according to reports that I've been able to verify, over $30 million. Now, we'll come back to him in a second. Now, Zeke, they offered him number 2 money. Number 2 money can be anywhere from between $13 to $14 million. Now, you have to understand the Cowboys. They've never lost the player they wanted. Jerry Jones knows how to make a deal. But if nobody's going to negotiate with you and you're at a standstill because nobody's doing anything, you're only going to go so far. And you're going to have some room at the end. And remember now, the general manager there has the backing of the owner. That's crucial because Jerry's the general manager. So he doesn't have to answer to anybody in this thing. That's kind of a unique situation. So I don't see why the Zeke thing doesn't get done at some point. What I was told is he did not have an intention of reporting to training camp. The old save your body trick here. Now, he loses the accredited season because he comes in after August 5th or 6th or whatever that date is. Well, that is important in the big picture is if he does that next year, he's not a free agent. Okay? He'll only have 3 credit years. So this is kind of the one shot to sit out. But again, I think they're close there. To me, that deal has to get done. Now, Dak, here's the unique thing about him. All the quarterback numbers and all the big-time players who are up, the threat of the franchise tag causes them to get a contract, not their ability. Cousins didn't get $28 million a year because of his ability. He got it because he became a free agent, but the franchise numbers kept forcing him up. So here's Dak. Team told me estimated $29 million if they franchise him next year. If he doesn't do an extension, then it becomes about $35 million. If he gets to the 3rd year, it becomes $51 million. So the agent says, for 3 franchise tags, that's $38 million a year. This is all theory now, okay? But this is what happens, see? The team will look at 2 years, 29 and 35 for a $32 million average. Most deals come in somewhere around that 2-year average, maybe a little bit more. Now, is this guy worth $30 million? Not in my opinion, he isn't. You put him out there in the open market, he's not a $30 million quarterback, but the franchise tag forces you into either signing this guy or finding an alternate. They don't have an alternate. The agency he's working for has a history of saying, let's go play those franchise tags out. What's got to happen here is Dak's got to come in and say to the agent, I want to get this deal done. I want to be a Cowboys. Guess what? $30+ million is enough. And I think that's kind of what's going to happen. That's my bet. So going back into Cowboys did the right thing. Aggressive offers, room to work.
Very good, Charlie. I mean, if you had to lose one of these guys, is it conceivable to have all these guys under big contracts? Is it smart business-wise? I mean,
the Colts were the first one to do this. They had the highest paid quarterback in football anytime he did a contract. Okay, then you had Marvin Harrison, Dwight Freeney, okay, and all of them were big-time contracts. Okay, Edgar and James, he was on a rookie contract. He was the fourth guy. It was 40% of their cap. They were able to win consistently and compete for the championship every year. Patriots didn't exist with Belichick. They would have won a bunch of more championships. So the formula is there with a certain percentage of your cap allotted to your top players. Now, what has to happen here, though, is the offense has to be dynamic. Got DeMarcus Lawrence fitting in there, okay? So he's already paid for one pass rusher. Remember, the Colts had Freeney, okay, and they had Mathis, so they had a second pass rusher. So what you have to do is decide you're going to win on offense, rush the passer, and draft well for everybody else, and you won't keep everybody else. Maybe you keep a couple more, because the Colts did keep a couple more good players.
Have we reached a point where every franchise quarterback expects to become the highest paid quarterback in the NFL when his contract is up? What happened to guys like, let's say, Andy Dalton or even Kaepernick, 5 years ago, or Alex Smith? Like, there was a second tier, which I believe Dak falls under as a player. What happened to that tier? Is it non-existent anymore?
It has eliminated itself, and I don't know if it comes back. I guess we'll find out if it comes back, because you got Marcus Mariota, you got Jameson Winston. Those guys are in the position, really, of Dak. I mean, they're going to be free agents.
The only reason I disagree with you, Charlie, is that I think if Dak actually made the free agent market, he would get $35 million. See, that's the thing with these quarterbacks. You say people aren't worth it, but if they actually got to an open market where there's multiple teams bidding, and I'm with you on not really seeing Dak necessarily as a top 10 quarterback at all, but his numbers are great. The Cowboys are going to pay. They kind of know they're going to pay. And if he got out there, just the fact that enough teams are missing quarterbacks, someone would pay him the money. You're worth as much as you're going to get. And I do wonder what the next CBA, like that hanging out over these negotiations, what impact that has to.
Well, I think on the next CBA, you're going to see a strong push by the owners to have some kind of stronger repercussions about guys under contract not showing up. I think that's going to be high on their list. Now, you're right. It only takes one team to pay Dak. When you talk to teams that play the Cowboys, they want the ball in the hands of Dak. They don't want it in the hands of Zeke Elliott. That's the guy that beats him. Okay?
Right.
And Cooper's a good player. There's other Coopers in the league, but they were lacking one. And he's made a difference for him.
Charlie, this is going to sound sick, but my colleague to my right, Gregg Rosenthal, for half of his life, his favorite team, the Patriots, has had Tom Brady carving up the NFL, winning rings. It's a disgrace, if you ask me, Charlie, to have that embarrassment of riches. And then, you and I are going back and forth in email before the show, figuring out what we're going to be talking about. And you got all these positive notes on Jarrett Stidham. No, Charlie, I can't have another good Patriots quarterback. We need a decade of stink coming from that positional room.
You know what? I'm saying, okay, why do Stidham? Well, this guy's important. Brady's 42. Going on 32, looks like he's 22. Okay?
Yeah, that's not
crazy,
suspicious
right?
at all, by the way, Charlie.
No, yeah, you're right. There is something in a joking manner now. Suspicious.
You could joke.
I mean, the guy doesn't make top dollar, and he's 42, and he's still beating people. There's something here now, anyway.
All right.
Maybe his nickname is, hey, his nickname's Joe Hardy. Look that one up for you, okay? Now that's a joke now, okay? People can't take that
Joe
one
Hardy.
seriously.
All right, wrote it down.
All right.
Google that.
You'll be interested in research Joe
Okay.
Hardy. But anyway, and it's a joke, sports fans, all right? So here's the thing. It's not to be taken seriously. Brady's a good man. He wouldn't do it. But here's the thing. With Stidham, Brady doesn't have a contract for next year, which nobody's taking that seriously because he'll be back with the Patriots. But you never know. But somehow they got to have a guy to replace this guy at some point, and Stidham's a rookie. So by the time Brady's 45, this guy will have some experience. But I was excited about – I didn't know what I was going to see. See, in college he had talent to throw, but the pressure killed him. This guy was not good versus pressure. Now, I hadn't had a lot of pressure in New England. First week, a little conservative, but really played well. And I did a social post on it. He had Brady feet. How Brady bounces in the pocket, and he never goes anywhere, and nobody ever touches him because he's got great sense. This guy kind of looked the same. Mm-hmm. So he's made good decisions. He's been accurate with the football. So I've been impressed with the guy. Now, the guy had 2 interceptions that were dropped, last week. So the stats are a little deceiving. But overall, poise, accuracy, seems to understand the offense. Been a surprise to me.
Stop it.
Well, Greg is in here pumping his fist. This concerns me that it would be sort of a Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers type of kickoff, but too early to say.
All right, Evan. So one of your pieces, many pieces, on Establish the Run, the Shy Away 30. Love this, and the title, you should be able to figure out what that means. It's the guys that Evan Silva, fantasy genius, would like to shy away from, and is suggesting you may do it too come draft day. Who's a guy, where do you want to start with this? Who's a guy that jumps out on you when it comes to shy away from this man?
The number one guy on the list right now is Antonio Brown, whose average draft position has stayed inside the top 10 receivers despite this strange foot infection thing, the helmet situation that has cost him all but 30 minutes of training camp so far. His extended absence from practice has prevented him from building any kind of rapport on the field with Derek Carr. And, he's been talking about retirement since March. Do you want to use your second round pick on a guy that has spoken about retirement repeatedly for several months, and then on the field last year, he had 7-year lows in yards per target and yards per route run. He scored a career high 15 touchdowns. So he showed signs of regression on the field, and he also is probably going to regress toward the mean in terms of his touchdown count. And I think he's really severely downgrading quarterback play from Ben Roethlisberger to Derek Carr.
What about what he said on Hard Knocks last night? Men lie, women lie, analytics don't.
Well, the analytics are not in his favor because
I guess it depends what you're looking at.
Really? I mean, Matt Harmon's, still has him in terms of getting open and everything. As now he's no longer the number 1 guy every year, but he's a top 5 guy. So, and to me, watching him last year, I just didn't think he had fallen off much. Maybe it's off the elite level, but we already talked about him with Adam Rank. So Chris and Silva are anti-Antonio Brown. Me, Rank, and Hanzus are pro.
He's going to be terrifying.
We'll just have to see who the real brick-by-brick players are.
Yeah, well, that's great. I love tracking this. It will be a great battle. But, for instance, my draft is on Monday. No one cares. But I'll tell you this. When Antonio Brown is staring at me when I'm late in the second round,
hey, enjoy the ride.
Tough.
Enjoy the ride.
Well, speaking of enjoying the ride.
I bet that Wesseling would be able to speak on this even more eloquently than I will be able to. But, this is not going to be a good Raiders team this year in all likelihood. I mean, their win total is right around 6.5. Sports books are begging people to bet the over. No one wants to bet the over because they know they're going to be bad. And so how sold out to play for the Raiders week in and week out is Antonio Brown going to be when they're 1-6, entering week 8?
And you have Josh Jacobs, the rookie running back, also on your list of players to stay away from. I guess it's all tied into that as well, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. And, this is another guy whose ADP has stubbornly stayed inside the top 20 running backs. The Raiders have already lost their left guard, Richie Incognito, to a 2-game suspension. Who knows what's going to happen with Richie Incognito on a week-to-week basis after he becomes eligible again. And I think that Jalen Richard, if you're going to take a running back on the Raiders, you take Jalen Richard really, really late. You don't take Josh Jacobs early because this is a team that's going to be chasing all season.
You have Melvin Gordon of the Chargers. Now, there's a new report out today, Wednesday, that this is something that's going to bleed into the season. I don't see Ezekiel Elliott, who obviously is a superior player, but the same situation when you worry about where is this guy. So Zeke is not a guy that you would worry about, and you would potentially take him in the first round. But Gordon, you'd say, get me away from him?
Yeah, Melvin Gordon is a guy that I have at running back 24 at this point. Just dumped him real low. And, it's not only the holdout, it's the offensive line situation. It's a bad offensive line on the right side. And now we have a major question mark at left tackle in Russell Okung. And the left guard, they're counting on Forrest Lamp, who has been, this is his third season. He hasn't even played a snap, essentially, so far. So the offensive line is a concern. And we don't know if we're going to see him before midseason. He can't hold out the entire year because he needs that accrued season to be eligible for free agency in 2020. But and he seems really dug in here. He was a big proponent of Le'Veon Bell's holdout last year, and I think that he feels a little bit empowered by that.
I'm going to throw a stay away. How about Damian Williams? Everyone, I love Damian Williams. I love the story. I love what he did. His career high in touches or carries is 50. I mean, I look at Darwin Thompson, and I think I might I would not be surprised remotely. I'll throw out my sleeper now, too. If Darwin Thompson leads that team in yards.
Love it.
It just doesn't – why would that be surprising? You're talking about a journeyman in Damian Williams, who they paid a backup salary, and they've talked him up, and maybe he will be their starter for 8, 9, 10 games. What are the odds he's their starter for 16 games? I think it's almost infinitesimal. And I like Darwin Thompson as a guy who's going super late, who might end up getting 6, 7, 8 starts. What do you think, Evan Silva?
I'm all the way in on Darwin Thompson.
Okay.
Yes!
There we go.
3 for
and
3.
You guys have been talking about him. You guys have been talking about him. We were going to talk about sleepers at the end.
Yeah, I figured Damian Williams was the most egregious stay away in the whole game to me, so just why not combine it?
The Chiefs, by the way, everybody.
Yeah.
Darwin Thompson last year ripped it up at Utah State, averaged almost 7 yards per carry, over 15 yards per reception as a running back. He averaged 5.1 yards after contact per carry. The next closest Mountain West running back averaged under 4 yards after contact per carry. He reminds me a lot of Dion Lewis. Lewis Riddick actually drew that same comparison recently. And look, go watch his snaps in the preseason so far. Darwin Thompson is ready to play in the big league.
Great football info. You got your fantasy info, and now you're ready for your draft, and you got Charlie just chopping it up.
I mean, what more could you ask for?
Couldn't ask for anything.
Well, it's also free. If you're asking for more, you have issues with entitlement and other issues, I'm sure, as well.
Absolutely. Check out the Around the NFL podcast 3 times a week. And remember, with the regular season coming up, our Sunday night flagship program. And every week, SiriusXM, they let you know what you need to hear. And that's what we're here for. Till next time.